G'day everyone, and welcome to the Insight NBA podcast. I am your host, Matty G, and today you've heard of winners, you've heard of losers of the free agency deadlines. It's not just about winners from the free agency deadlines. There were trades, so we're going to call this upshot guys or early targets for the 24-25 season. Joining me from Yahoo Sports is Dan Titus. He's done a great article recently on his winners and losers from free agency and guys he wants to find value. We're going to chop that up in a two-part podcast series. This one is the guys who come out on top, and you should be early on your watch list for 24-25. It's coming up at you after this.
They're playing basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skitty, and Mally for the Insight NBA show.
Now, because with Dan, we are talking about risers today. We're talking about guys who we really do like after the trades in the offseason or from free agency signings and team. This is all influence where we are going to take them on the draft day and releasing. We have the big draft day kit, including our big draft boards, myself, Matrix, Mally, and Skitty. Our top 200, they're on there. Then our consensus, the average of all of our four guys, and player reference data for over 200 players. It's all on there. It's exclusive on our Patreon and on our web store. Make sure you get it. The links are in the bio. It drops in the first week of August. It's going to be updated right along the way, all the way up until the NBA draft. Where do guys go? Where do guys rise? Where do they fall? We're going to give you all of that data from our big draft kits. You can get them online now. Only $10 gets you one, but for $25, it gets you all four, the consensus, and 200 players. Get it now. Welcome all, and welcome Dan Titus. How are you, mate?
Doing great, Matty. Good to see you, man. How you been?
Man, it's been a minute. I've been really, really well. You've been riding the wave of Vegas recently. How is that getting out to Summer League? You love that.
It's always great, man. I love looking at the young players and especially the second and third year guys that, from a fantasy perspective, we're trying to see how their role can be reshaped, if they're getting another opportunity, if they're taking advantage, are they improving? So I definitely took a lot of notes while I was there, and it was always good to see Josh Lloyd, definitely a perennial Summer League attendee.
Yeah.
So always good to chop it up with him too.
Yeah, man. There's I can tell you now there's a group. I think you're in the group chat. Adam King is looking forward to putting a group of guys together for Vegas next year. I'm very excited. It'll be my first escaping of the Australian winter over into the summer over there. 45 degrees. It's a wonderful change. We're talking about guys who are hot or early on our watch list. These are guys we want to target in fantasy. So we're going to call this early targets.
Target acquired.
For the 24-25 season, and there's one guy that you love in Brooklyn. They have reshaped their team. They're tanking, but yet they re-signed Nick Claxton for a lot of money, and he's good. A lot of money, and he's good. We like Nick Claxton. We want to pick him up, but you think this bloke here, Cam Thomas from the Nets, is someone who's early on your watch list? Talk us through that, mate.
Yeah, and I think initially everyone's going to kind of be off on Cam Thomas because of the inefficiency, but when you sell all of your guards minus Ben Simmons, there's an opportunity to be had here, right? Like Mikal Bridges was a guy that commanded 17 shots a game, didn't have a high usage, but Cam Thomas, this dude had 30% usage rate, one of only 9 players, 23 and under, to have that high of a usage rate. And when there's no one else around there that can create their own shot, I think that's going to bode well for Cam Thomas. And at this point, one of the areas that I'm really looking forward to seeing his growth is really as a playmaker. Through the last couple of months of the season, he averaged around 3.5 assists. I think that could go up to around 4. If he can shoot around 46%, I think we could have a really nice value pick in the middle rounds of fantasy. So this is really just a volume play. The downside of this could be a Jordan Poole scenario where you're just.
This is a Jordan Poole scenario.
Where
this could be the league's leading scorer. This is the guy. He's going to be top 40, and then he's like 128.
And he's not. But I will say that there are still some adults in the room, at least in Brooklyn. DFS is still there. Cam Johnson's there. As you mentioned, they re-signed Nick Claxton. I really like what I've seen out of Noah Clowney in Summer League and what he did at the end of the season. this actually still could be an all right team. Like, are they tanking? For sure. They got to get the draft picks to rebuild this team. But I think Cam Thomas has a real opportunity to be potentially a franchise cornerstone piece here if he has a good season. So
I think he's definitely the showcase piece. I think he's the guy who's going to be like, if you look at the team, like Cam Thomas isn't an attractive option. Nick Claxton, he gets some love, but then he's haters because his inability to stretch the floor is a big. But look, his rebound and block numbers, his field goal percentage numbers are great. His free throw percentage can wane. On volume, sometimes I've seen him as a Nick Claxton, Clacko, as I like to call him, owner. I think he's a winner in this whole free agency thing too, because beside Clowney does have more of an ability to stretch the floor, despite his percentages being sub 400. I think it's sub 350 last I checked on Noah Clowney, but he can stretch the floor. And you do have to worry about that. He has an improved percentage on spot-up jumpers, especially from the corner. And if Claxton's your guy pulling down the middle, and you can do a pick and roll game with Thomas and he can capitalize on that, he's going to make better decisions. So I'm right there with you. I think Cam Thomas, where do you see him going? Where do you see his round?
I think he's probably going to be an 8th, 9th round guy. Like, I don't see anyone probably spending up maybe in the 7th round if you're really bullish on him. But I'm probably going to be around that 7th, 8th round territory, just because, like, I don't think at that point in the draft, you're not going to get too many guys that are going to be getting a 30% usage rate. So assuming your roster build and you have some high efficiency guys, you might be able to stomach, him shooting 44, 43% as the season kind of gets on. But like, I feel like he's going to be better going into next season. That's one of the guys I would have liked to have seen in summer league, but the fact that he's not playing probably means a lot that, he's off in the offseason, getting ready for next season, this bigger substantial role he's going to have.
And he also showed a willingness to shoot threes more as well. To begin the season, he was almost a 30-point scorer with, I think, 4 3-points attempted a game. And that went up as the
season. Mid-range. That was like his thing, like those contested twos.
Yeah, right? It was just there. Then all of a sudden he was like, okay, I'm going to stretch the floor a little bit. And his 3-point attempts went up. So if he can keep that, he's definitely going to return you value. Again, high usage, but you're not going to get guys like dropping 30 points in the like 4th, 5th, 6th round even. Those guys are off the board first 3 rounds. So this is a guy who's doubling his round potentially of value. Talking about value, diminished assets, this is what we're calling early targets. Early target on this guy right here, Australia's very own Josh Giddey. He has been traded from the OKC Thunder to the Chicago Bulls. Now, I'm in two minds. Talk this up with me. He had a diminished role last year. I've got him down here that he finished with the 144th ranked value. Now, if you do the numbers, and if you've got a 12-team league and 12 players, this is like the last guy. This is a guy who was dropped. On hashtag that was on Basketball Monster. Hashtag he was 118. Now, a lot of owners last year were super aggressive on him. His overall average draft position last season was 53. On Yahoo, he was at 59. Like, he was at 59 on Yahoo. So this is a guy who's like, and then as he gets worse over the season. But we need to remember he was 160th in his rookie year. We like the potential of a Josh Giddey. We like the assists. We like the rebounds. We like all these things, man. And then his sophomore campaign, everyone's like, oh, he's great. And this is, again, he's only been in the league 3 years. His sophomore campaign, he finished the year as the 113th best player, playing 76 games in OKC as well. So this is a guy who's actually never exceeded top 100 value in his fantasy, but yet we draft him like he is this savior of assists and rebounds because he led OKC the year before. I think he's going to be better than 113 from his sophomore campaign. I think he's going to be better than this. But we need to remember in Chicago, we need to temper expectations. Zach LaVine's coming back. It's like this trading of pieces. Like, okay, Zach's coming back, but DeMar's out. So you're just like swapping dudes of usage in and out. Not that DeMar needs as much usage as that, but I see him probably going about finishing up anywhere between 80 or 90 because he hasn't, like, that's a 30 place rank jump from his best ever ranking. I see him finishing around that zone. So I am curious where he's going to fall, especially because I think owners are going to be down on him, mate.
Yeah, I would say that owners might be down on him initially just because if you look at the numbers from his sophomore campaign, they dropped nearly across the board. But I think that that's more of a reflection of where the Oklahoma City Thunder were and their ascension of where they were going as a team, right? Like, he started seeing 20 minutes a game, barely saw time in the playoffs in critical moments. He's getting benched for a rookie, Kason Wallace. So at this point, I think now that he's in a new scenario, I think fantasy managers will be a little bit smarter on, hey, where's the right place to draft him? It's not in the 5th and 6th round. But if you're looking at the pure production and the counting stats that he can provide, Josh Giddey is a winner in fantasy. Like, the fact that you're not going to have, I don't think Lonzo Ball is anywhere close to returning to play. I've seen him running around. I see him more on podcasts than anything. So at this point, you're really only.
We'll get him on the next one. We'll get him in to be the third on the next one. We'll
yeah.
Hey, Lonzo, what are you doing? Nothing.
Chilling.
Chilling.
I feel like at this point, it's like Kobe White, and then it's Josh Giddey. But like the thing about Josh Giddey is that you're not expecting him to score 20 points a game. I don't know how much this is going to impact. I think it's going to impact Kobe White more than it's going to impact Josh Giddey, because Josh Giddey is a guy that can rebound well. He can get you assists. You won't rely on him for 3-pointers, but I think he's shown over the last 2 years that he can shoot a competent efficiency, 47, 48%. So if he can hold those numbers and increase his points to about 15, 16 a game, which is where he was his sophomore year, that's going to be a pretty good fantasy player. And as you said, like 113 has been his peak. He could creep into 90 with that improved efficiency, the counting stats that we knew about from sophomore campaign, because right now the Chicago Bulls are vested right now. Like they're going to pay him a rookie extension. He's going to be in Chicago for a while. He's probably going to be their point guard of the future, or that hybrid guy that's, big enough that he can play both spots, but he'll also handle the ball a lot. So,
and Caruso's been shipped out on that deal too. Dosunmu, that does give him some value, but Dosunmu's still going to take a bit of a hit this year compared to where he was in starting last year. So he's still going to be a loser in this situation. And we'll chop that up on the next podcast when we do the guys who we're a little bit more down on, who we were up on. But the thing is, I think you hit the nail on the head. His minutes were down. In fact, last year he averaged 25.1 minutes a game. And for his first 2 seasons, he was basically 31.1, 31.5. The funny thing is about Gids last year, his free throw percentage increased to 800, and he was still on a similar amount of, 80%. But his free throw numbers actually were around the same. So he showed an better stroke from the free throw line. We like that. And it's so funny. When you look at how it broke down on it, he actually got just slightly less steals, slight bump in blocks. He got more blocks in less time, just by a very slight bit. And he was only just slightly down by 0.2 in steals. And that's in 6 minutes less a game. That's 1/4 of his previous time that was taken away from the guy, and he was still only producing 1.5 rebounds less. He's big, he's rangy, he can get those rebounds, and I think, as you said, man, the Bulls are going to be invested in him in the future. And talking about investing in guys for the future, if you've got a new arena and you're in California and your name is the Clippers, this guy just continues to get the bag. You are high on Harden for next year.
I'm high on Harden, man. I think at this point, it's a matter of like who's left, right? Kawhi Leonard can't play or didn't play, or I don't know what the deal is, but apparently Lawrence Frank said that he could play in the USA team, and they were like, nah. So I'm just banking on the lack of health and availability of Kawhi Leonard. With Paul George now gone, James Harden has an opportunity to take on way more of a scoring load here. His averaged 16 points per game last year. That's his lowest since 2011, 2012. I think that's going to go back up to at least 18 a game. We know what he can do from an assist standpoint. Now, yes, there are less weapons around him, but I think the Clippers have done a decent job in trying to rebuild that roster without Paul George and trying to stay under that luxury tax. But at this point, James Harden last year was a steal in round 3. I think he was going like 4th round in some cases just because of that holdup he was having with the Sixers. But now I think he's pretty much entrenched as like a 3rd round pick, with the upside of more if he can continue to up those assists to around 8 to 9 a game with 18 points. The efficiency is going to be a struggle, but like he'll still make that up in terms of his free throw percentage, the volume, as well as those 3-pointers.
And he finished the season last year like being one of those guys that was in that ballpark. So we're not exactly like every down on Harden, but like if he goes down, it's like almost like Houston Rockets Harden again. It's almost like this guy who was just an isolation dude. Who else have they got? Kevin Porter Jr.? I mean, he loves a shot.
I mean, Terrence Mann is like 28, and we've been waiting for him to like do something, and it's not there. Derrick Jones Jr., he's not an offensive threat. Nick Batum is back, solid veteran, but what are we talking about from a fantasy perspective there? And then you got Ivica Zubac. So like, this is literally, I mean, they decided to pay Harden $35 million. So at this point, I feel like they're vested in it. They have vested interest in it. And I think he's at the point of his career. Like, is he on the downswing of his career? For sure. But if we're talking about value and opportunity, I think he's worth the cost of a 3rd round pick right now.
Oh, 100%. If he slips into your 3rd round, you're like, yeah, I'm going to get this guy, because for all intents and purposes, Harden could very much finish as the 20th, 18th, 17th best player in the 2nd round. Yeah. And if he slips to your mid 3rd round, again, like we're not talking about we're not going to kook our draft taking a guy. I mean, we kook our draft if we take a guy who goes out injured in the second round a little bit. Like, oh God, I've got to scramble for Cade Cunningham's out for the whole season. He's played 5 games.
That's a great point, because I think there's going to be a lot of, I think I talked about this with Dan Besbris a little bit, but like, and since he's like repping the old man squad thing, this is like the perfect guy to target, because there's going to be a lot of younger crop of players that have shown a lot of opportunity and just ascension in fantasy that these old dudes are going to be overlooked. Like, I don't want James Harden on my team. Like, cause you're thinking like, oh, this isn't the 25 and 10 guy that he was before, but like, there's still some value there. And so like, I think these old guys might get skipped over a little bit, just by the nature of, the shiny new toys that are entering the league here.
I actually want to do a mock draft this year. You should jump on this one with Dan Besbris. And I actually want to do old dudes, where you've actually got to draft old dudes to fill out your starting 5. Has to be guys who are like 25 and over.
Start off with KD. You're going to go Damian Lillard. Then you got Harden. Then you got like round 4.
You got LeBron.
For sure.
You got pile it with old dudes, and then you can go nuts on the young guys and just see who's still left on your draft board afterwards, just for shits and giggles. I think it would absolutely be hilarious. Like, everybody's got to fill up their board first. It was like, why are you passing on Booker? Look, and Harden again, he finished 24th on #basketball last year.
Right.
So he finished at the end of your second round, and he's going to get a bump, and he's falling to your third round. The math kind of just checks out and makes sense that you're going to take this guy. Got a couple flyers for the last of our winners before our honorable mentions list. A guy who's got shout out to this bloke. I was talking to you off air that this is a guy who you have a really great first date with. Like, you pick him up, it goes well, it's like really like, this is good. I think I like her. And you're calling the boys like, hey man, in the group chat, like, yeah man, it's real good. Like, last night was fantastic. Met her at the club. We're going to go out this week. It's going to be good, man. It's got a lot of potential.
There's a lot to change my life here. Right?
There's a lot of promise. Then you draft Tobias Harris, and you go out on that first date, and then you get back into the group text, and you're like, the guys were, how was it? How was Tobias?
Wet blanket.
Wet blanket, man. It wasn't fun. Like, look, it was okay. It was about as mid. It was all right. Like, what are you going to do? Like, look, I think we'll hang out some more. Like, you think you'll hang out some more? Yeah, look, I might just keep him around. Like, I'm just, I've called him Houses Harris for years. He is Houses Harris. He is a safe as Houses pick, but he gets the same value. This is a guy who literally just gets forgotten about because he is safe as Houses, and he is the unsexy date. He is the guy that you don't want to pick up because you're like, what? I don't want Tobias Harris. Like, there's nothing wrong with the guy. Like, he doesn't get you steals, but he has decent percentages. He'll get you 3 points. He'll get you rebounds. He is bumping down the value of guys like Asar Thompson and Simon Fontecchio in Detroit. He is there. He has been welcomed back with open arms into Motor City. And Tobias Harris is just a winner out of this whole situation, because you're going to get slept on, and you're going to be looking at him slipping in your draft. And you're like, is there something wrong with me? Am I flirting with the idea of the guy who finished 54th last year and is now in the 70s? I know there's nothing wrong with you, but you're going to try and hope he starts off really hot and then trade him and upgrade your date. And you find it.
Yeah, because I think if you're looking at the way that the Detroit Pistons are building their team here, like, it's a lot of youth, and then you have Tobias Harris, and then these veteran guys like Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. But these guys aren't going to be playing heavy minutes going into like the final month of the season, right? So I think at this point, this is a floor raiser. You know what Tobias Harris is. You're getting 17 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, no real stocks, but pretty good efficiency. You can shoot 48% from the field.
We'll buy you some drinks. We'll buy you some drinks. Offer to pay for dinner every now and then. We'll take you to the movies when the new one comes out that you want to see. Oh, Deadpool and Wolverine. You want to see Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Yeah, I really do. Okay, well then I'll take you.
He fills your time up, right? You won't be bored on a Friday night, right? Like, he'll give you something to do. And that's what you want in like round 8, 9, 10. Like, he's not getting to 10, but round 8, I feel like that's just the type Tobias Harris. Like,
he's a hard 7, hard 8. Like, he's like a hard 7. What is he? Like, I really like, no. But when you met, you thought he was a 10. No. Always just been a hard 7.
It's so true. But like, Detroit is the perfect place for him to be. You did mention that you think it's going to hurt Asar. I don't know that it's going to hurt Asar as much as it's going to hurt Simone Fontecchio, who had a moment for a time, but like, it's really going to hurt Isaiah Stewart. Like, Beef Stew is pretty much probably going to be on his way out at some point, because now, you have Ron Holland that's there. They got to give him some time. And now that we have a new
Ivy is taking a hit in Detroit. We've got a whole Detroit thing coming up on the next pod, Dan. There's going to be some.
I'm about to say Detroit's got they got to dedicate a whole pod to that because at least Monty Williams isn't there anymore. Troy Weaver's not there, so it looks like we have some competency in the building. But in terms of rotation, like, are they going to try to win games? Like, I would think that they're going to try to. They've got the shooters around Cade. That was a good plus, but I don't know how that's going to affect the playing time of the Jaden Ivies, the Marcus Sassers. Like, I feel like Asar Thompson will be fine. He should be the starting small forward, but everybody else, I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about you in fantasy now that they're signing these like veteran guys that are just like, what do you, I get it. You got to spend your cap space, get some leaders in the room, but like, is Tobias Harris really a leader? Like, he's kind of one of those guys that's always on a mid-level franchise, and he'll score
mid is the point. Mid is Tobias Harris's.
Exactly.
He's mid.
Mid.
He's like the middest of the mids. Oh, Tobias. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, you're with him now. Like, I remember I used to go out with Tobias Harris.
That's your settling point for sure.
We've all met Tobias. You go, you play fantasy with a friend you haven't caught up with for a while. It's like, oh, how's your roster this year? You haven't spoken in a decade. Yeah, good. I'm
Tobias Harris.
With Tobias Harris. Oh, really? Good. How's that working out for you? You might win a league, maybe not. But it's hey, another guy we're talking about with minutes and opportunity here, and we haven't spoken since the Russell Westbrook. Now we're waiting for the confirmation and the chips to fall where they may for the Denver Nuggets. One guy who I was really high on was Christian Braun for next season. I really like his fit in Denver. There's been an investment with him in their youth culture for a while. Because they kind of went into that last year a little bit. Like, we're letting these guys go. We're bringing in a couple guys. We're going to let them develop. And he's the guy who they roll out there a lot. And I really like it. And I thought he was the natural evolution of KCP. KCP goes, yeah, that's fine. We got Christian. Much like for me last year with, John Collins is leaving Atlanta. That's fine. We've got Jalen Johnson. We're okay. Now, I'm not expecting a Jalen Johnson type breakout for Christian Braun this year. I'm not expecting him to be like this, like, holy shit, Jalen Johnson. But I am expecting him to have gotten minutes. 31 minutes a game were vacated by KCP. Now Westbrook. Does Westbrook start? Is he the Reggie Jackson that they've let go? Is he the 6? If Christian Braun starts, and he has that role, and this is the shooting guard in Denver, this is a guy that I'm looking at towards the end of rounds who people are going to completely forget on their draft day. This is why we're talking about early targets. We want to watch where he goes. We want to watch those minutes in the preseason. And Dan, look, the guy has got a decent enough three-point shot. His spot-up threes are ridiculous. In fact, his three-point percentages at times last year was nuts. As a starter, and he's only ever started 4 games, it's at 625, which is ridiculous. But as a reserve, it's 372. As a reserve. So this is a guy who can stretch the floor. He has a decent enough steal rate, almost 1 a game. And we're not even talking about per 36s here with the guy. For me, this is a guy who averages 1.5 threes. He's going to get more of those. He averages 13 points per 36 on 460, 450 for like field goal percentage. So again, like Tobias, kind of mid, but a guy who needs to fill a role. And like people like a KCP on their team. You like this guy who you can just plug and play. You can get your rotations. He can work off Jokic really well. He's part of a system. How much of a hit do you think he takes with Westbrook in town now?
I think he's going to take a hit. And the thing I'm trying to figure out is how many minutes is he going to get now that Westbrook, another guy that's going to take some of that workload. So now I saw somebody, I think it was Paul Pierce, who he's a basketball player, so I think he knows the game, but like some of his takes are highly questionable. But I don't think he's totally wrong. Like I think there's a scenario where Russell Westbrook will run point, move Jamal Murray to the 2, and then potentially you have, start off Jamal Murray, have Christian Braun there. They're going to just alternate this like trifecta, right? Whereas Murray's still going to keep his 33 minutes per game. Brown and Westbrook probably average out to be like 25, 20 to 28. I would
love 28 for Christian. For Christian at 28, I like that. He averaged last year only 20 minutes. An 8-minute bump for the guy puts him on my radar a little bit more.
Yeah,
substantial.
And I'm trying to think of like what profile I would give him, and like because the thing about KCP is that like at least KCP was getting up 4 3-pointers a game, as you mentioned. Like Brown has shown an ability to knock down a 3, but like I would like to see that volume increase. And if he can get that up to like 3 or 4 a game, and he's knocking them down at a 38-40% clip like he did last year, that's something that's going to keep him on the court, because Westbrook can't do that, right?
100%.
And that's what they need around Jokic and Jamal is like, hey, if they're going to be running pick and roll, you got to be ready to catch and shoot and let it fly. And if he can prove that, I think he'll earn those minutes. I think we're probably trying to look more of like him as like an Alex Caruso type of guy where
100%.
he can rebound well. He can do a little bit of playmaking, but he's really just going to be out there to strap up on defense and knock down a couple threes. So if you're looking at like 11 points, 12 points, probably like 5 boards, 3 assists, like that's a solid contributor in the back end if he has those efficiency numbers. So I think he can get there. The other question I have is like, where's Peyton Watson fit into this? Is he somebody
100%.
that's going to get minutes? Julian Strother's looked really good in summer league. Is he someone that's going to crack the lineup because he can really stretch the floor? So I kind of want to pay attention to the training camp and see how things go. But I think he's the de facto, that being Christian Brown. I think he's the de facto 2 right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if other people kind of muck that up a little bit just based off of Russell Westbrook coming in.
I think Westbrook mucks that up too. That's where because we were talking about this pod for a couple of days and this happened, and I'm like, man, I've got to rethink this. But I'm just really curious to see where it comes because you put it in the pipeline. So we want to see where it shakes because we all know what Reggie Jackson did off the bench. Jamal Murray gets hurt all of a sudden. Jamal Murray gets hurt yet again. Russell Westbrook's going to be the shooting guard. The point guard. Christian Brown will be the default, you would assume, starter, you would hope at this point in time. So there's always value. So he's going to be one of my early targets to watch where it shakes out. The one ding in his game is his free throw percentage because you think of Christian Brown as this like 3-point spot up shooter, good defender, Alex Caruso archetype who can hit free throws. He can't. He's actually a sub 700 free throw shooter. So that's a bit of a, if you're punting free throw percentage, he's definitely a guy to probably keep more so on your radar. But we've got a bunch of guys. Before we finish off with one very special shout out guy, some honorable mentions. We've got Kevin Porter Jr., Isaiah Hartenstein, Valanciunas, and Najee Marshall. Mate, you love Val as a guy next year. You look at your eyes light up.
I do, and it's like because Valanciunas was one of those guys like similar to Giddey, where he just kind of lost. He just became out of favor as the season wore on. Willie Green wanted to run small, but like his decision to go to Washington was like super interesting to me because I'm like, why would you go to this developmental roster that's clearly in a rebuild? And I think he's trying to build up his stock again, and he's getting paid to do it. And he doesn't need 30 minutes to be effective. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the game, one of the best rebounders in the game. And so, like, if you're talking about Jordan Poole, Alex Sarr, who's shooting like 1 for his last 21, Bilal Coulibaly, dude, there's just so many boards to go around.
Sir, can I get a rebound? Can I get a rebound? Could you just let me go out there and get some rebounds, please? I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the league in rebounds next year.
Dude, he's going to be looking at I think the double-double possibility is very high. And, this is a guy that's usually tinkering around that like 9th, 10th round of drafts. Yeah. And, he'll be a top 100 player. But I think he could probably creep into that 70, 80 range if we're talking about, efficiency. He's a good shooter from the free throw line. He can get you a block a game. He's going to be a cheap big that I'm not going to be afraid to buy into because I get the landing spot isn't great, but hey, we're talking about volume opportunity here. This dude's going to be one of the veterans on the team. I think he's going to show a lot of leadership here and potentially boost his trade value by midseason because his contract actually isn't that bad. So any of those teams that might have an injury to a big, he might luck into a nice situation there if you can build up his stock a little bit.
No, 100%. And look, they're obviously tanking. They're going to want to free up minutes for Coulibaly, for Sarr. Yep. They're just going to want these young guys to get out there. We don't even know what's going on with Tyus Jones in this team yet. We're looking for news on what's going on with him. So he's definitely someone who you can bundle in the package and get moving. I love Isaiah Hartenstein for a reason. Some people aren't as high on him. They're like, but he's not going to be what he was last year because of Chet and everything. Okay, great. Yeah, he only had a role. You were only picking up Isaiah. Who ran to the waiver wire for Isaiah? Like, who did that? Like, you did? Who you're listening to this podcast right now, and you ran to your waiver wire to pick him up, and you're acting like you did it on draft day, being like, no, you did not. You ran to your waiver wire to get this guy the second that Mitch Robinson went down, because we know the inherent problems with having Mitch Robinson as injuries. He finished the season as the 88th best player last year in 75 games for the New York Knicks. They need a big. I was screaming for OKC to get a big. Hartenstein lands there. It's a good, again, later round. He's not going to put up that like, oh my God, Isaiah Hartenstein's 3rd round value for like a 2-week stretch. Look, maybe he gets some sexy 2-week stretches in there like Jarrett Allen did last year on a stacked roster. Maybe he gets that every now and then. But do you want a really good, dependable big? You absolutely do. And that's a guy who I like, who is Isaiah Hartenstein. Other guys on the watch list, he's taken a bit of a ding with the arrival of Klay Thompson in town. Najee Marshall looked like he would be starting in the small forward spot over in Dallas. That's going to be absorbed by Clay because they have confirmed that Klay Thompson will be the starter in Dallas. And Kevin Porter Jr., old mate KPJ, Dan, he is coming back to the league. And this is a Miles Bridges situation. Like, we don't like the guy, but you kind of got to pick him up at a point.
Yeah, I think that there's just an opportunity for him as a volume scorer. Like, KCP, as much as off-court issues aside, I mean, he was a 20-point scorer, 5 assists. The backcourt with Jalen Green was ugly for basketball terms, but for fantasy, like, he was a fantasy viable guy. And he can shoot the three. They're going to need someone off the bench. Like, Bones Highland didn't improve anything in his first year with the Clippers. So, like, I feel like at this point, very cheap investment. He definitely has to build up his character as well as his reputation again. Yeah. This is a good buy low opportunity if you wanted to do that. But I understand if you're not messing with the off-court stuff, like you don't want to draft Bridges, totally get it. But if you're talking about value, he's definitely a late round guy that will probably see a decent amount of floor time once he gets back into the Clippers system again.
100%. Now, there's one guy who we disagree on, and this is a part 2 podcast. As we said, these are the guys who are our early targets. And the next one is the guys who are a bit cold, who we're going to fade for this season. And you and I are in very different camps about one particular player. This is what we're going to have to sell each other on this one, because I know that we're preaching to different choirs. I'm preaching from it. One guy who I have as an early target, because I'm really curious, because he's hurt your feelings. This is the one you let get away. This is the one you put all of that work in, and then they disappointed you, and it was a really rough breakup. And that one man's name is Mikal Bridges. Now, Mikal, this is what I like to call Mikal Bridges, a journey. Last year, his Yahoo average ADP, I've gotten all this stuff from your website. I got deep in. I messaged friends of yours in the office for this.
Round 2.
21.2 was his average ADP. Round 2.
Round 2.
Now, across a bunch of ones, including Fantrax, who had him at the last, he was the 50th pick, 50.76.
That's so more to his expectation. That's where he should be, right?
Exactly. So across all the websites, CBS, ESPN, blah, 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 Yahoo, he finished 25. So basically you burn a second round pick just to pick him up. He did not return that. He basically hurt your feelings very, very hard. And he finished just 90. Like 90. Like he didn't even just inside the top 100. This guy hurt your feelings. He had flashes. He couldn't do it. It was because of the inefficiencies in a role. So why I call this as a journey is this. So his ADP in 22-23 was 59 on Yahoo. He finished the season after the trade from Phoenix as the 39th best player. However, and he was 32 on Basketball Monsters list. Interestingly enough, here's the thing that I want to get to, Dan. Before he was traded to Brooklyn, in his role in Phoenix, a stacked roster of players, that happened on the 9th of February. According to Basketball Monster, his rank from the start of the season till the trade deadline was actually 36. Which we forget that that's on a stacked roster, what he can do. His ADP in 21-22 was 76, and he finished the rank as 55th. So where I think he is a winner this year is that you might be thinking that Mikal Bridges could be a 90 guy. There will be people in your leagues where we're thinking that Mikal Bridges in this New York Knicks system is like a 90 to 110 guy, or he's going to be worse than 90 because he's a fader. So he's going to be outside the top 100 of dudes. And I'm like, actually, I'm confidently looking at him at 80, being like, yep, I know what you do. You get steals, you get rebounds, you get way better efficiency. You can hit free throws, your field goal percentage is up, and your defensive effort in a Tom Thibodeau scheme is going to return to the glory days of Phoenix. I am higher, therefore, on Mikal Bridges actually getting you better value because of his perception of being an absolute crater floor butthole pain from last year, man. So when people are fading him a little bit down, I mean, he's outside top 100 now. The Knicks are stacked. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But he actually knows how to play in a system. He knows how to play a role. He's with his friends. The Nova Knicks are a real thing. And I'm looking to pick him up if I can. If I can get him in the 90s this year, I'm kind of laughing, mate.
I don't think you're going to be able to get him in the 90s. And while I'm down on him, I'm also trying to be somewhat realistic. Like, I think he's a 6th round, 7th round pick for real. Like, I think he's going to finish. I don't think he's going to finish 90th, but I also don't feel like he's going to finish in the top 40. And mainly because, as you pointed out, as you astutely pointed out, he has been in the third man role before. Yeah. And I don't know that if he's going to be in the 3rd role or he's going to be in the 4th role and like kind of tinker on that. So kind of like Tobias Harris to me. If his efficiency is working, he'll probably be in that realm of top 60, top 50 guy. The problem that I have with Mikal Bridges is his blocks have gone down, his steals have gone down. And if you're the third, sometimes fourth option, where do you sit with his points? Because he's not going to help you that much in rebounding. He's not going to help you that much in assists. It's really just his points, his steals, and his efficiency. That efficiency was what dropped him to 40 to, top 100 player. I think he'll get back to normalcy. Like he'll probably regress back up to like 47, 48, something like that. Going to 50, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then also you got OG Anunoby, who's going to be like that third, fourth option. He's going to be flip-flopping with. I don't know. There could be points where Mikal Bridges just goes to the corner and is relegated to just shooting threes. That may be fine for 12 points a game, but like, are we going to get the rebounds? Are we going to get the assist? Are we going to get the rebounds? Are we going to get the steals? The one saving grace that we have from Mikal Bridges is that I know that his minutes will never be a question. If he can establish himself as that third option, he'll be worth a 5th round pick. But I think it's going to be more natural that he's going to be like probably 60, upwards of 75. But I could see a case where he could be top 50 again, inside the top 50. I'm not paying it, but I applaud you for it if you want to do that.
Oh, I ain't going in that 50 zone. I'm just thinking if there's a lot of dudes who are really hurt and they see where he finished last year, especially for noob leagues. This is a newbie league secret. Like, guys, he finished where last, and they see where he goes. That's going to help you because people are going to be like less inclined to draft him with those. And as you said, justifiably so. Like on the Knicks, they've got a lot of players. Oh, he's not going to get that role. And so if he falls on draft day, if his ADP slips, this could be a guy who you might get some sneaky value out of, who can give you the things that you need, because you need that stable course. But guys who aren't going to give you the stable course are guys who are losers. That's in our next podcast. We're going to record part 2 straight away. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe to all the things, and we'll catch you in that one.